It's just fantastic. Captain's Log, Subdates 220111.3. This is the second week of cells getting multiple inmates in, well, yeah, one video. I'm starting to think that I'm going to need backup to best tackle this influx of soon-to-be eunuchs. Now try and guess the crime. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmates numbers 110.1 and 110.2 to the ISO cubes. And yes, we have a school teacher, everyone. A religious education teacher, and also a deputy head. That's one person, the other one, meh. And you know what this means, right? We're going to go through all of this, by the way, so you can fully understand how this is, one, not a surprise, and two, both people are deserving of incredibly long sentences. The inmates in question are called Julie Morris and David Morris. Julie Morris and David Morris met in 2016 on the dating app Plenty of Fish, with Julie joining the site after a 15-year marriage fell apart after her husband had been unfaithful. Since 2011, Julie Morris was the safeguarding lead at St George's Central Church of England Primary School in Wigan. It didn't take long after initially starting their courtship to be described as, and I'm going to quote this, quickly becoming intensely sexual. This is relevant to later, so I thought I'd insert it now because it does tee up things. A lot of the messages sent between Julie and David were sent via WhatsApp. If you don't use WhatsApp, it is encrypted. That's relevant as well. You see, after discussing their fantasies and really burrowing down that rabbit hole, David indicated he had a taste for younger blood. And Julie, wanting to please him, although she did claim later that she was being blackmailed because he would release her nudes, took pictures of school children and sent them to David Morris for his sexual gratification. Spoiler, he was not trying to blackmail her, and she was very much in on everything. I'll also add, none of the images taken of the children were in any way indecent, they were just taken without their consent. It's referenced in all the articles, which will be linked down below. And also worth adding to this, the police were not charging them with this. No, they got them something far darker, so consider this your trigger warning. What Julie Morris and David Morris did was described by the prosecutor as the pinnacle of the most disgusting and depraved types of acts that people can discuss and do. As the communications between Julie Morris and David Morris escalated and got more and more sordid and graphic and depraved, as described by the prosecution, they decided to take some of their sexual fantasies and enact them, thereby making them a reality. To do this, they created a WhatsApp group, and within this group was somebody under the age of 13, along with Julie and David Morris. The individual they had in that WhatsApp group chat, they described as their little plaything. It was around this time that Julie was sending those pictures of school children to David. Initially, the conversation was just conversation, but as there are two adults, midlifed, and an under 13-year-old, this became grooming. And then after becoming grooming, it turns to acts of sexual abuse. This abuse included at least 7 incidents of rape. All of these incidents took place between May 2018 and September 2021. In 2018, that girl was just 8 years old, and the vast majority of it was filmed by Julie Morris because she was heard in the background giggling. Some of the messages sent from David to Julie included David having naughty thoughts about their little plaything, with Julie replying, "As long as I'm still involved, baby, kisses, kisses, kisses," before they were eventually arrested. Over 175,000 pages worth of messages were sent between the couple. That's over 3 years, and I know to some people that's not a lot of messages, but it actually is when you take into account just how much imagery, video, and, well, darkness was included. So with that out of the way, we now go on to how they were caught, because this one was fluky. When I say fluky, I really mean It was a jammy arrest. In early 2020, the police raided the home of a paedophile in London. When the police analysed that paedophile's phone, they found out he had been in contact with David Morris, and they had in fact exchanged images of children. In early September, they eventually managed to find David Morris at his home in St Helens, which is in Merseyside. He was eventually released on bail, and officers were tipped off the following day that David Morris and Julie Morris were attempting to flee. The police at the time they had arrested him had confiscated a number of devices. They showed recordings of rape and sexual abuse. So naturally, when Julie and David Morris attempt to flee in a camper van to the Lake District with £10,000 in cash to go live out their Bonnie and Clyde dreams in the woodland realm of the Lake District, understandably the police are going to get involved and they're going to stop you from fleeing because they've busted you. The evidence is there. You kept it and you distributed it to other paedophiles. So yes, within 48 hours, both Julie Morris and David Morris had been arrested, all because of a raid on the home of someone in London that David Morris had been in contact with. The charges for Julie Morris included 2 counts of rape, 9 of inciting a child under the age of 13 to engage in sexual activity, and 2 of engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child. David Morris was charged with 7 counts of rape, 13 counts of causing or inciting a child under 13 to engage in sexual activity, and 2 counts of engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child, along with being charged with taking indecent images of categories A, B, and C, possessing and distributing indecent images, and 2 counts of engaging in sexual communications with a child. Also, 3 counts of voyeurism, possession of an extreme pornographic image, and possession of a prohibited image of a child. For those that don't know, categories A, B, and C determine the severity of the type of imagery that they possess, with category A involving penetrative sexual activity and or images involving sexual activity with an animal or sadism, category B images involving non-penetrative sexual activity, and category C other indecent images not falling within categories A or B. And voyeurism, for those who don't know, is defined as sexual preference for observing others engaging in intimate activity. Voyeurism is typically something females are charged with. Earlier in the video I mentioned that Julie Morris told the police that she feared her partner, David Morris, would release nude photographs he had taken to her friends and family if she did not cooperate and provide fresh meat or partake in activities that, were criminal, along with admitting to officers that there had been no direct threat that this would actually happen. The judge rejected this defense, saying that she was an enthusiastic participant in the abuse and even fed her boyfriend's insatiable appetite for child sex, by stating there is no evidence in the thousands of messages between the pair that he had threatened to do this. Julie Morris was not an innocent female. Coerced into carrying out the offences, she was equally as responsible as David Morris. She is 100% aware of what was going on. She is completely involved. She knows exactly what is happening, and at times she is encouraging it to take place. At no point is she saying stop this or please don't do this. She is a willing participant and encourages him to carry on. Julie Morris was often described as a do-gooder, attending her regular church for 30 years, going to university, getting a psychology degree, getting a maths qualification from another university, essentially a valued member of the community that was well respected, along with being a safeguarding lead, which for those who don't know means she has been trained to recognize the signs of grooming. Her job was to protect the children, but she used those very techniques to protect herself from the scrutiny of others. David Morris was a quick-fit mechanic who in 2018 made the pages of the local newspaper after he helped to raise money for a sick 3-year-old boy to visit Disneyland. So he was also well respected to an extent. During an early hearing where evidence was outlined, senior CPS prosecutor Miss Neeson said she may be crying now because Julie Morris was breaking down in tears as the evidence was outlined, but there are no tears in the videos. In fact, she is giggling in them. Police described her as cold and detached in the interview. There was a complete lack of emotional response from her. The descriptions of what they did are so horrific that when I'd finished reading them I burst into tears. It's a young child whose innocence has been stolen. It is the worst case I've come across in my 20-year career. It is a shocking fall from grace from someone respected in the community who held a position of trust. Defending, Paul Becker said that Julie Morris had endured a difficult childhood after her parents split. When she was 4 and her father died when she was 9. She felt unloved at home, was bullied at school and had a lack of self-confidence and self-belief, adding that Julie Morris was thoroughly ashamed and appalled at what she had done. Due to her criminality, she has lost everything: her reputation, her career and her home. Wigan Council sought reassurances from the police that none of the photographs of pupils were indecent and no criminal offences had taken place. They did this because they wanted to make sure the parents felt safe sending their kids back to the school of St George's Central Church of England Primary in Wigan. In an earlier hearing, David Morris pled guilty to 7 counts of rape, 13 counts of causing or inciting a child under 13 to engage in sexual activity, 2 counts of engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child, taking indecent images of categories A, B, and C, possessing and distributing indecent images, 2 counts of engaging in sexual communications with a child, 3 counts of voyeurism, possession of an extreme pornographic image, and possession of a prohibited image of a child. Julie Morris admitted to 2 counts of rape, 9 of inciting a child under the age of 13 to engage in sexual activity, 2 of engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child, 3 counts of taking indecent images of a child, 1 of engaging in sexual communication with a child, and 1 for possessing indecent images of a child. So yes, this didn't have to go before a jury, they were guilty. And with that, we get to the sentence. David Morris was handed a sentence of 16 years after pleading guilty to all 34 charges I earlier read. He will also be given an indefinite sexual harm prevention order and must sign the sex offenders register for life. Julie Morris will also have to sign the sex offenders register for life and be given an indefinite sexual harm prevention order, along with serving 13 years and 4 months in prison, after which she will spend 4 years on license. While I was scrolling through the CPS Rape and Sexual Offences Sentencing Council documents as well, I tried to look at whether or not these sentences were accurate when you take into account the guilty plea, but in reality, it ultimately didn't matter. I will link them down below, of course I will, for you to look at if you want to, because the sentence is not as long as it should have been. The sentencing guidelines confirm it, and because of the severity, this should have been a whole life term, which is the sentence I give to Julie Morris and David Morris, aka inmate numbers 110.1 and 110.2. Now, as we are done with this, I'd very much like to know what you all think. Please do let me know in the comments down below. Hope you'll have a great day even with this dragging you down, and thank you all very much for listening. Ta-ta.